Okay, here today we have a Marshall JCM-900 100 watt high gain dual reverb combo. This is the 112 version of this amp. Um, don't see a whole lot of these. This is model 4101. You can see it right there, 4101. It's pretty much the same amp as their 100 watt high gain dual reverb head. They also made a 212 version of this amp, I believe. What this amp is doing is it is red plating at least one of the tubes, and perhaps more. But I brought it up on a variac the other night, slowly, just to see what it was doing. The gentleman I got this from mentioned that he thought the tubes were too hot, which I don't, he was just using whatever, the language that he had available to him, and said that the tubes were just way too hot, and I suspected they might have been red plating, and at least one of them indeed was. So we're going to go in here. My first suspects, I'm going to look at the coupling caps, especially the ones before the output stage, and see if those might have failed. Probably going to pull this back board out and look on at least this backboard, and I probably will pull this one as well and look underneath it and make sure nothing has come unsoldered. But my primary suspects is going to be stuff on this backboard, because most of the circuitry back there is the stuff that's closest to the power section, and if we have red plating output tubes, that could be a problem. It also could be that our bias is way off, and I believe this is the bias pot, if I'm not mistaken. That's the only pot I see in here, so I'm pretty sure it's the bias pot. I'm going to get the schematics and download all the service materials that Marshall put out on this thing. But one thing I'll notice, if you followed the sort of deconstruction and repair of the JCM-900 DSL head that I had here not too long ago, the construction is actually better than that amp, in my opinion, because for one thing, the sockets are all actually mounted to the chassis. Every one of the tube sockets are chassis mounted. They're not as easily accessible, really. I mean, you still have to take this board out to get to the sockets themselves, but at least they are mounted directly to the chassis, so there's a lot less room for something bad to happen in terms of the solder joints breaking there, because they actually have wiring. So that to me is a good thing, and that speaks to the higher quality of this JCM-900 series, as far as the build quality, at least. You might like the tone of the JCM-2000s better, but the build quality of these 900s is certainly better in my opinion, and that's the main reason why. But I'm going to pull this backboard out, probably first of all after I get the schematics downloaded and I see what my main suspects are probably going to be. But I'm going to look at coupling caps, and I'm going to check this entire board out for any loose solder joints, which is something that is pretty prevalent on these Marshalls. Happens quite a lot, so I'm going to go with that as a first suspect. So let's pull the board out first, go ahead and download the schematic information, and we'll take it from there. Okay, I've detached this board and checked out the underneath, and all the solder joints seem to be okay. I wiggled all the components, and I don't see any problem with any of these. So what we're going to do, we actually have to pop this back on to test this, but I'm going to go on the theory that I've either got possibly some bad tubes, or my bias is off. So I'm going to probably pop some new tubes in and check the bias and see if new tubes also red plate. If new tubes don't red plate, then it might have been tubes. and then I'll just set the bias. And if all else fails, I'll come back and probably start here and replace these two caps, and maybe even this one over here as well. You can't really test them very well in circuit, so if I'm going to pop them out to test them, I may as well just replace them, because they're fairly cheap anyway. They're just little 0.047s at 250 volts, so I mean, they're not very costly, and I'm sure just about anything would be as good or better than these. So that's what we'll work on for the moment. Okay, been messing around some more with this JCM-900, and come to find out, they made two different versions of this amp, and I kind of already knew that, but I assumed I was looking at the version that we see here with EL34 output tubes, but the closer I looked at the bias section on this schematic and compared it to what's actually in this amp, this is incorrect. There's a few things that are kind of red flags. For instance, if we look here, hang on, let me focus. R30 is actually attached to the bias pot. It comes off of one of the legs of the pot and attaches right here. R30 does. And on the board, there's an R30. Obviously, that's marked on the board itself. But on this one's R28. And what we actually see in the amplifier is coming off the leg of the bias pot is labeled R28. So to me, that's a red flag that we're looking at this version of the circuit, which uses 5881 power tubes, rather than this version of the circuit, which used EL34 output tubes. The one with EL34 output tubes, let's see, DWG number CDD192, 1990 is the date on this one. Issue, let's see, 5, 6, 7. This one, on the other hand, looks like it's a bit later. Issue number 14. And this one is from 1993. So I think what I have here is a little bit of a later version of this amp, and it's the one that uses 5881. So what I'm going to do is pop some 5881s in it and bias it and go from there, I believe. Now the 5881s should have a whole hell of a lot less plate dissipation than an EL34, so I'm going to take it real easy when I'm powering this up with 5881s, just to make sure I don't just burn them completely up from the get-go. So we'll just kind of take it slowly and see how that goes. But I'm hoping I could pop some 5881s in this thing and bias it, and we might be done. I've actually gone through and tested all these values, and here's another red flag right here. This is another value that you can look for if you want to know which version of this you have. Let's see, where is it? Okay, it is number R30. That one is a 10K in the example that I have. It reads 10K. The R30 on this other schematic, let's see, where is that one? That's the 56K that's right here. So when you read those, again, this is going to be wrong. But actually the other one I was wanting to point to is R36, which is right here on this schematic in the version I do not have. And that one is a 2.2K. And then the R36 over on this schematic, actually this schematic is in two parts. Here's part of it, and then it was a bit too large for them to fit it all on one page, so they've got an addendum page here, and R36 is 22 ohms, which is the exact value that I see in this actual amp. So this is another value that you can look at. If R36 is 22 ohms, then you have the issued 14 schematic, and if R36 is 2.2K, then you have this version of the schematic on your hands. So yeah, so that with that in mind, I'm going to go forward with the plan. Let's stick some 5881s and see if we can bias this thing. After some repairs, we finally gotten to a point where we can test out this Marshall JCM-900 model 4101. One thing that I will note that I still need to do, and I've just kind of figured this out, is this couple of volume pots, the master volume for both channels, they're still a little bit scratchy. I cleaned all the pots, but I think I'm going to have to replace these still. I mean, you can even just touch this one and just hit certain notes and it will start crackling. So I do need to get back in there and at least replace this pot, if not both of those. But otherwise, we can at least still get an idea of what the thing sounds like. I'm going to use a guitar with humbuckers because what else are you going to do with a Marshall? I know Hendrix fans are probably screaming at me right now, but... Good cleans on channel 1. Channel 1, and I'll be honest, I like actually the dirty sound Channel 1 better than I do Channel 2. Channel 2 is the one that's got most of the integrated circuits and gain stages, extra gain stages and all that sort of thing. So I'll flip over to Channel 2 here and we'll check it out. Right now the gain is about straight up. Got that real kind of buzzy sort of overdrive that, I mean, I'll be honest, I don't care. I personally don't care for a whole lot on Channel 2. Channel 1 is, and you can hear there the little pops and things, and I think again that's in the that's in both of these volume knobs. So I need to get in there and check that out. I actually did not take this front board out and check the bottom of it, so I'm going to do that, and we'll probably film that as well. But I'll pull that this front board out. And actually, one of the things I would do if I were going to keep this amp and tour with it or something like that would probably be to replace all of these front pots with pots that weren't hardwired to the board. I would run wires from each of the pots down to the board, but you can hear there the little popping going on, and I'm pretty certain that is that's either in the coupling caps or it's in these master volume knobs. I can seem to make it happen with these by moving these master volumes. So I do need to get in there again and check that. But I actually like the overdrive, I think, on channel 1 even better than the overdrive on channel 2. And you'll kind of have to take it with a grain of salt, because this pot is probably still going to crackle and stuff whenever I do this. But I'm going to crank the gain on channel 1 and check that out for a second. It's a lot ballsier, a lot more JCM-900-ish if you crank the channel 1 gain. And then use your guitar. Thicker, a lot ballsier, less buzzy insect, kind of integrated circuit, sort of a overdrive to the first channel. So if you get one of these, I would just recommend, probably cranking the gain on channel 1, to a pretty decent level, and using your guitar volume or volume pedal or something like that to kind of push yourself into overdrive, and then maybe even a pedal of some sort. But now you can still hear this. Yeah, that's definitely not right. So I do need to get in here and pull this front board and see what's going on with that. But yeah, cool amp. If you can get one, I don't think they made too many of these with the 112 like this. I haven't seen a whole lot of them. So if you run into one, they can be pretty good amps. You might have to put a little bit of work into it, like I've done with this one on the bias circuit. I might even go back in there and just shotgun all of the caps in the bias circuit while I'm in there, just to be sure. But yeah, cool amp, and we'll follow the rest of the repair now. Okay, we're getting back into this amp here, and we've removed all the knobs, and a couple of these knobs, you'll see here, they have bigger holes, and that's because two of these, this one here and this one here, they actually have the nut attached on the faceplate here, or not on the faceplate actually, it's on the chassis. The bigger hole is actually in the faceplate, and there were two nuts, one here and one over here, that attaches this thing on, and you can see inside the chassis, if you look down here in this little slit, you'll see kind of a bubble, a little dimple in the chassis where this plate butts up against to keep this stable. And there's another one over here. To get this board out, there's actually two little pegs. There's one here that you have to release, this little plastic thing, and you just kind of squeeze it and get I may have to get some pliers after that, but you squeeze this and get that out. And then there's another one over here on this side. If you don't take those out, you'll be wondering, like I did at first, why this board wasn't coming out. But the more I looked back here, you can see these little plastic things go down to the chassis down there. So you need to remove those. There's one there, one on this side, and then we'll get this board out and take a look and see if there's anything on the bottom end of this that looks like it's needs some soldering work, because once again we had some popping and stuff going on that was kind of intermittent, so it tells me something's rattling loose somewhere, or we have maybe some problems with these two caps. I'll probably, while I'm in here, I'll go ahead and replace these two caps, I imagine, and I might even go ahead and just replace all these coupling caps as well. Since I'm going to have this board back here out anyway, I may as well just go ahead and shotgun those coupling caps and these two caps, and then I believe these bigger ones are fine. I've measured those and they seem fine, so I'm probably going to leave those. These smaller ones I think up here might be okay, but I'll check those too while I have the board out. That'll give me access to the bottom. But we'll check all these little electrolytics in here and see see if they're all okay, and we'll probably go ahead and replace these coupling caps here as well, since we have this front board out. There's another one there, and that I mean, if that doesn't fix it afterwards, not really sure. So, but anyway, we'll see. Let's look at the bottom of the board first, and we'll kind of go from there. Well, here's the underside of the board, and I don't see any sorts of problems. I've came in here and wiggled all these components looking for problems. The only problems I really see is when I wiggle the pots. The actual shaft of most of these pots is loose on the shaft itself. So I'm thinking a couple of these pots at least need to be replaced for sure, and I may even come in here and decide to just replace them all and mount them to the faceplate. Kind of debating that right now. I know that would be, in the long term, that would be the best solution, but I don't know. I mean, this should be a workable amp if I can get, if I can at least get the ones that I know should be replaced. These two master volumes, they seem to be the worst off, and I may just replace the two master volumes and the two gain controls. So I may do those and just call it a day. But we'll see. We'll see what we end up doing here. But for sure, I don't think any of these traces or any of these solder points are the problem. So we'll replace a few components, maybe the coupling caps, and just go from there. Okay, I did decide after all to mount these pots on the chassis. I was able to actually salvage all of the pots except for the one which was replaced. That's this one here, and that seems to have been the one causing the problems with the cutting out. But I've mounted all these to the chassis, which is much better. It's much more reliable. If the pot comes loose, it's not going to be as much of a problem. Now these traces down here, a few of those had a hard time not burning, and actually most of them will burn, just to get these pots out of there, because when they installed these at the factory, they actually stick them in and twist the ends and then bend them over, so they're very well in there, and trying to get those pots out without messing up those traces was quite a chore. And there's 10 of them here, so let's see, 3, 6, yeah, there's 10 pots, so it took a little while to do, but at any rate, we did get them all in. They all are wired correctly. A few of the traces were burned, but I was able to work around that, and there's really no way around burning those traces that I know of, because those pots were so well in there. Like I said, they were basically the ends of these pots were stuck down in and then twisted and bent over. It appeared, so very difficult to get out. But with everything wired up, it's a much better amp. It's pretty much dead quiet. I've got it plugged in just to a cord. That's why you can kind of hear some buzzing, and also because I've got a light right overhead. But yeah, I think that's probably going to take care of the problem. That seemed to be what was causing the popping, so I think we're good to go on this JCM-900. If you get one of these, I would just caution you, if you are going to mount these pots to the front like this, just be very careful. Make sure you have a good soldering iron. Try to wiggle the pot gently as you pull everything out. If you can, I tried to get my solder sucker to suck most of the solder out, and that wasn't working too well either. So I don't know, it was just a chore to get them out, but I think it's going to be a better amp henceforth. So it was worth it in the end. But there's what it looks like, and I actually used the red, white, and blue colors for America or France. So keeping up with current events. But there she is.